All right, Matt and JD are back for round number 6 of the Chicago Open. Take it away, JD.
Yeah, so this was game six. I'm coming off like kind of a tough loss, and I have the black pieces, and we get knight f3, which I wasn't particularly excited to face. I really kind of prefer the more standard d4, d5 kind of stuff, or the Caro-Kann. I would have been equally happy to get that. So g3, which so I'm not too upset. I play a weekly blitz event at my like local chess club, and one of the guys I play every single week because we always end up playing each other. He plays this kind of stuff. So I was like, all right, fine, whatever. I know what I'm doing. And play here, and then it is d3. And the whole point of our setup is we're trying to get this e5, take the big center. And usually I'm used to white trying to play e4 is the main idea that I'm typically aware of. He went c4. And I had a bit of a think here, and because I haven't really seen this before, but I assumed his idea, which I was correct in, that he was just going to try to go all out on the queen side, and he did. And I was pretty happy because I feel like that I did slowly kind of outplay him in the opening. I thought this was really a strange move. I didn't, but then I guess I figured out that his plan is to come here and to support this pawn, which is exactly what he did. Played h6 because I thought if he's going to be playing here, he doesn't want his bishop on b2, and it already can't come here. And I was already thinking that if he came to this square, I was going to try to push. So I
Mhm.
really thought this limited his bishop quite a bit. And I definitely had ideas of pushing here. I also was like, do I take? Because if I take and he takes back, I can maybe put my queen here, and I have like kind of a structure I'm pretty comfortable with. But I decided don't commit to anything yet. Just keep kind of developing. So I brought the bishop out. He went ahead with his plan. I castled. He played the bishop here, which I thought was probably kind of an awkward move for him. And I had a bit of a think here again. Like I thought maybe I'll take, and then if he takes back with the pawn, I can come here and maybe. Or I was like, maybe I play d5 at some point. I didn't actually really like queen c7 very much because I thought he'll take here, I'll have to take back, and then he'll dump a rook on the c5. I didn't really like my queen there. So it actually turns out that the computer's favorite move was actually just queen b8, which didn't
Ooh.
really occur to me. It feels too awkward, but really maybe it shouldn't because the queen doesn't set so badly there, and I can often find play with the a pawn.
I
So
actually like queen c7. I mean, she could go to d6 later too. D6
yeah,
could be a nice square for her potentially.
yeah. And so I also had this idea that if he takes here, maybe I'll just take with the knight and put pressure on this pawn.
Mhm.
So it was just an idea. So he played the knight in, and which hangs this pawn. And I had a long think here. I probably spent like 20 some minutes. Like I am a little bit better. Originally, when I saw that this knight could come here and attack my bishop, I was just going to drop it back. That's the safe plan that I alluded to a long time ago, and a couple videos
Yeah.
ago. And was my plan, and I think it's a pretty solid idea. I mean, if I play here, he takes. I can take. Say rook comes to c1. I just have like this was what I was thinking about, and this is nice because like so to say the queen's got to move out of the way to try to defend this pawn. Well, I can just get like a5, and I was looking at stuff like this, and I was like I can play my rooks out. My pieces are much better on the queen side than really his are.
Well, and
And
his position kind of relied on pressuring your center with the pieces, and he lost that pressure. Like right now, everything is so solid that you just have the advantage of space and better miners.
yeah, so this is kind of what I thought I went. Unfortunately, uh, I decided here that I had calculated a knockout blow, and I did. It was just for the wrong person.
Oh, gee. Well, I think you should trust your calculation. Like if you look at bishop takes b4, you calculate that it works, you should play it. Because in the current position, things maybe could get shaky in the center, and this might be your chance to convert the win if bishop takes b4 works.
Yeah, I believed that I thought that I was going up either a clean pawn or he was just going to lose.
Mhm.
And so what I looked at was all right, bishop takes. And then he takes here, I take back here, and then I looked at two different moves: Queen B3 and Queen A4. I kind of expected Queen A4 because I thought his point would be that I drop the bishop back, he takes, and I can't take back because the knight's hanging. That's kind of what I was expecting.
Mhm.
Um, but so he played queen to b3, and what I had calculated was here, takes, takes, and I thought he cannot take this pawn, is what I thought. Because I thought I'll take here, and then I have this move. And what I expected, or what I thought was going to happen, was, well, okay, I looked at like all kinds of stuff. If the rook moves to try to make the pin, well, I have this check, and I just pick up the rook. If the king can't possibly move out of the way, and the queen has nowhere really good to go, I'm threatening. I'm also just threatening to take here and then take here. Like I have lots of threats here, and if I take, my idea was that I would capture here, here, and I'll go here, and I'm going to win this bishop, and he can't take the knight because his rook's hanging. So
Mhm.
I looked at all of this stuff, and what I even looked. This is hilarious because I even looked. Oh, what if he plays this trying to block? Oh, I'll just take it and nothing changes.
Yeah.
And through all of that, I bet I looked at almost every legal move except for d4. And I don't know. I mean, I looked at even the idea of playing bishop to e5. Like I even considered this as an option for him and decided I was happy. But for some reason, I had a blind spot and just didn't see this move, which is sad because that's what he plays, and I don't know what I'm. It's bad.
You know what's actually kinda cool though for the viewers, like, watching my blunder in the last game and your blunder in this game? It's showing that even at the 2000 or 2200 over the board level, classical chess, these mistakes do happen. Like, you shouldn't be discouraged if these things are happening in your game sometimes. It happens at any level, and we just have to try to figure out why and learn from it in the future.
So one sort of calculation takeaway that I have for myself is I did all of my calculations here, and then when we got to this point where it's now time to commit, I didn't recalculate. I said, okay, you spent 20 minutes on this.
Yeah.
You went over everything, like, and that was something I was trying to do in this game because I have a habit of like dwelling on moves and being very afraid and not, and it just like I'm not even calculating. I'm just sitting there like, I don't know, and I'm not actually looking. I'm just like sitting there being afraid. And I was like, I said to myself, I'm not going to do this. I had a mental note that says, if you're not calculating anything, if you're not actually looking at new ideas,
Mhm.
then just you're gonna play what you thought, and you're not gonna. And so that's kind of what I did here. But I should have looked at here. I probably could have seen the D4 idea from here. And
Yeah, but it's a
really, I mean, I have a pretty solid move here. If I probably should, if I can find this move, I'm probably doing okay. But it didn't. So he plays here, and now the game's really just over. This is like that Caro-Kann game where I won 2 pieces for the rook and then just totally crushed. That's what happened to me this time.
in reverse.
Second time. For the second time, I gave up 2 pieces for the rook. That was a really big theme. Three of my games featured 2 pieces for the rook, and in all 3 games, the 2 pieces absolutely dominated. So I
Resta
took,
J had it in his one of his games too. Did you see that?
yeah, yeah. So I did the best I really could. This was a super obnoxious move. I thought I was like, okay, if you can keep the queens on, like you have some chances.
Yeah, that's just
Uh,
mean. It's such a good move.
yeah, this just forces the queens off the board. And so here, like, I was pretty dejected. And actually, I mean, so initially I played some kind of passive moves, but then I was like, all right, it's time to play actively. So passive move, and here I decided that like, okay, you've got to get this pawn off the board.
I
If
think we
I
should really hammer in that point too, the 2 pieces versus the rook. Like if can you go back 2 moves?
Yeah,
If you're the viewer of this video, what do you think the eval is here? Take a guess. What is the Stockfish evaluation? Material is dead even.
yeah, it's
I
technically even. I have an extra pawn, and he has 2 pieces, and I have a rook.
It's +7. The computer says white is completely winning. So really when you have the rook and pawn, like you got to be very sure you got good counterplay with the rook and pawn. maybe a pass pawn, a rook that's way more active than the bishop and knight, because in this position there's a bishop pair for white too, and these minor pieces are just dominating the board.
Yeah, it's horrible. So I went here. I decided to give this pawn up. I can't. I mean, I saw the idea that like at first I was like, haha, he can't take my pawn. But I,
Yeah.
I knew he couldn't because I play here. I'm not actually gonna win one of the rooks because he has this check. So went here and this is rough. I can't actually he had a quicker win than he chose. Hey, we played here, and I'm almost made it. So I played here, and he somewhat gave me some hope. If he had played Rook D1 here, I was just going to resign.
Yeah,
Like,
your king's trapped.
my king is trapped, and he's going to play here. My only move is to play Rook takes, and then I'm just down. As kind of a point here earlier, uh, I'm very nearly. I had to play the knight out to here because I'm very nearly mated. I'm very very nearly mated. If this pawn check is a mate threat, so I was a little bit pleased. So here again, I made kind of my last like passive move. This was passive. I should immediately try to come in for activity. I mean, I have some hopes here. This is less desperate than before, which is, I'm clearly down material here, whereas before I was like equal material, but this is less desperate, even though I'm down material.
Yeah.
So went here, and now I had some ideas that I was like, I don't care about the kingside pawns. I'm going to try to pretend like that half of the board doesn't exist and try to attack this situation. This is my best hope.
I think it's a good try, yeah, if you can get your rook on B2. You can jump
Yeah,
your rook to B2 right here.
yeah, but I can't because I can't even go to C2 because checks. So
Mhm.
like now it's really is just desperately over. And finally here I decide to throw in the towel because there's nothing more I can do.
Yeah, I mean, I think your opening was good, and it was just that knight takes F2,
It was
you
just
know,
bad calculation. It's just
calculating that again. Yep.
Yeah, it's just bad calculation is
Well,
the really all there is to it.
we should mention though, like with the time control of this event, you only got 90 minutes to start the game. So there is a 30-second increment, but I found in a lot of my games, I was really trying hard to balance my time management. Like it's a different type of time control. And as we'll see coming up in my last two games, I played the openings way faster. And I almost felt I was playing the openings too fast, but then I ended up using all my time later on. And I think it was actually good time management. Whereas my
Yeah.
early rounds, I burned the time early and I kept feeling time pressure round after round.
Yeah, this loss stung quite a bit just because it like I was definitely like playing better than him
Yeah.
and I just gave it all away through some poor calculation. So, but you had some good calculation. You bounced back. You went from hanging pieces in one move to
Yeah.
sacrificing pieces for crushing attack, right?
Yeah, that's true. So this was my first opponent that was a real young player. He told me after the game he was 10 years old. So playing the Caro Khan, exchange variation, and he kind of plays the main line at the club level. Knight e2, I pin the knight. And if you have the Caro course, this comes right out of the course. Bishop d7, bishop f4, e5 takes. So we get this position where I have the isolated queen pawn, but my compensation for it is the fact that that king is going to end up on g1, and there's going to be this opening along the diagonal that kind of weakens the kingside structure, right? These dark squares all become weak. So it's a approximately balanced position already, and I kind of like that because, sometimes a balanced position in the Caro can just be really dry and drawish. This one does not feel that way at all. It's a dynamic equal position.
Yeah, this is not a draw.
So here there's threats to think about, right? Like he's got to watch for this discovery on the bishop, sidesteps. And I'm shutting down knight to b5. That's the idea there. Knight c2, castle. So at this point, I get the impression that he's a very solid player. He sees the IQP, and he's just going to put his pieces on squares that he can blockade the IQP. And he's going to make me prove something, right? This pawn is a long-term weakness. If enough pieces trade off, maybe he can win the pawn even. Where is my play coming from? And the thematic move here is to play knight h5, attack in this bishop, and it's a little bit strange for white figuring out where do you put that guy. There's not a lot of good squares, and he decides to take the knight.
Hmm.
And I recognize this as a strategic error pretty much right away. Um, But what I was thinking is, well, maybe he has this plan to push this F pawn right up the board. And I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time trying to make sure that I wasn't just getting steamrolled with the F pawn and potentially missing something here.
You mean you spent time on this recapture?
Uh, some point around here.
I was like,
It was probably here, actually. It was probably here after he went G3. Okay, rook E8. Yeah, right around here. Okay, so I played rook E8, and I'm thinking, will he play F4, F5? It's potentially a good idea for white. And it's funny, I asked him after the game, and keep in mind, he's 10 years old. And I said, did you consider playing F4 when I played rook E8? And he goes, no, I thought that maybe it would be weakening the light squares too much. And I was like, "What?" He was
spoken like a
exactly
true
right. Yeah,
10-year-old.
he was right, though. This is weakening his kingside structure. So here I could just retreat the bishop. And if he plays F5, there's no big threats. This knight can easily come back. And I'm going to double my rooks on the E file. He's not going to get a kingside pawn storm going when all my pieces are ready on the kingside.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So he goes queen C2, poking at this pawn. And I play G6. So again, I was kind of watching for the F4, F5 ideas. Queen B3, attacking this pawn. And now I go bishop to D6. And what I was thinking here is he can take D5 if he wants it, but that's going to buy me time to double my rooks. And I really liked the activity here after the rooks double,
Hmm.
because this rook is coming into E3 very quickly. And now I'm starting to create some big threats. This bishop can potentially come to C6 or out to H3. And I'm constantly looking for this sacrifice. Like, if I can sack on G3 and end up with my queen on G3, that could be enough to just get the win with tactics.
All right.
What do you think of that, though? I mean, do you think sacking this pawn is justified, or should I maybe try to take a move to defend it?
I, I mentioned earlier in my King's Indian that I made my first ever like intuitive sacrifice, and I think in this position I'm back in the Petrosian camp.
You'd, yeah, play it knight f6 maybe, play it solid.
Actually, if anything, I like Rook D8.
Oh, do it, defend with tactics.
Yeah, I'm defending it tactically because of Bishop H3 or something else, maybe. I don't know. But
I think this would work. Yeah. I like that because then you're bringing in a new attacker. I feel like that's actually more my style too. I
yeah.
always say like, oh, just develop a piece. Okay, bishop d6. I think I actually kind of had the mindset, since this was the last day of the tournament and I wasn't feeling great with my chess. I had an aggressive mindset, I think, this game, which is
yeah.
going to pay off eventually. Rook e1, rook e3. So now I'm hitting the bishop. He brings the knight back, and I was licking my chops here. I'd been waiting to play this all game. I actually kind of wanted this knight to get off of the defensive g3 so that I could make the sack. And I
Yeah.
was so excited to do it that I messed up the move order here. I should play rook takes e1 first, rook takes e1, and then bishop takes g3.
okay.
And after h takes g, queen takes g, it's more useful to have this knight in the attack because the knight can head to g3 with check in some lines.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. The queen and bishop, when you only have them, they kind of get in each other's way a little bit.
exactly right. They're both trying to use the diagonals.
Yeah.
So instead, I played knight takes g3 check, which is still a good position for black. It's like a 2-point advantage, whereas the other one was like 5 points. And after takes, I trade rooks and bishop takes g3. This was definitely an intuitive sack. I mean, I was looking at all the lines. I couldn't find a great defense for white, but I also couldn't see through to like a checkmate in every single variation. I just
Yeah.
knew that I was only down 1 point of material. My queen is coming in very quickly, and white's pieces are a little bit uncoordinated, which helps me out. So he goes rook e2, queen f4. And rook
Hit my
e2 was a mistake. That made the win a little easier.
Yeah.
What were you going to
Well,
say?
in both cases, when we both made these sort of intuitive sacks, our opponents made things pretty easy for us immediately after. They didn't attack too resiliently
That's
or
true.
defend.
I think it's hard to defend in this kind of position. Like, there's so many different threats that you get a bit of analysis paralysis where you're trying to calculate everything. Rook
Yeah.
g1 was the strongest move. And actually, the computer says after this, he should sack back. So if I knew that was the case and that I'm Well, we got the rook for 2 pieces, but I have 2 pawns in this situation. If I knew
And
this
an
would
attack
happen,
and a weak king. You
yeah,
have
we
you're threatening queen E1.
yep,
You're threatening bishop H3, queen G2. You're threatening rook E8, rook E1. Like this is different than the other scenarios where we had 2 pieces for a rook. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, you've got to pass pawn. Like this is different.
Right. So he does rook e2. I play queen f4, and here I was able to calculate at this point that I was winning. I checked all these lines over. Everything was leading to pretty much a forced checkmate or him giving back significant material. So he's got to guard the knight. Plays queen c2. Now I go queen h6 check. And this was kind of a hard idea for me to spot at first. So I saw it when I played queen f4, this idea. I'm putting the queen on h6 because I actually want the bishop here and then here. I was trying to
Mm,
figure out what's the best way to attack the king, and it was
yeah,
having my queen on the h file and then this bishop on e3 so that this bishop can come help on h3. And if his king runs, I wanted my rook on e8. So that's
yeah,
kind of the setup I was going for.
yeah. And this rook on E2 that he brought back for defense really kind of shuts this knight out from where it wants to go.
Right. Yeah, the knight I'm if it goes to b3, it's going away from the attack.
Yeah.
He moves the king, I attack his knight, and then he has to put the rook back. And now bishop to e3 comes. And his best move here is to sack the rook. He moves king, rook e8. So now if the king runs to e2, I can move this bishop with the discovered check,
Yeah, you
knowing that
just
I'll
take a
win
knight.
at
Take
least
some knight somewhere.
yeah, win at least a piece. So he does that. But now I'm looking at this position and I was thinking, well, maybe I have more than just winning the knight. The best move is bishop to f2 check, which I did not spot, but it's the same idea but better.
Yeah.
I played bishop to d2 check.
Ah, okay. I like that. That makes sense.
And the idea is queen e3, king goes there, bishop h3 mate.
Yeah.
So he blocked with bish. I throw in the check, moves, checkmate.
Mate, nice. That's really nice. That's a really nice game.
Yeah, so best game of the tournament came in round 6. Yeah, I don't think there were too many like critical takeaways in that game. I just thought it had a good flow out of that exchange, Caro.
Yeah, yeah. That was a really nice game. You should be quite happy with that one.
Thank you. So that left us on that was round 6. I had 3.5 points. You had 3 points, and then Presta J won again, or back to his winning ways, I should say. 4.5 points out of 6.
Yeah, he's a monster.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you guys for the round 7 recap.